Muslim Dearborn Police Chief Shaheen on the Islamic call to prayer, blasting 5 times starting at sunrise daily. Play cut 210.
Oftentimes when we take readings, Council President, it's the ambient noise that's even louder than the call to prayer, to be honest with you. The truck will go by, hit a pothole, and it's much louder than the call to prayer. 2 or 3 evaluations that we have had in the last couple of years have been met with compliance as soon as we've talked to the religious institutions. It's no different than church bells that you might hear on Sunday.
So no different than church bells. Well, so you know who has succeeded more in the modern time is Christian nations. And there's a reason for that. We have freedom. We have individual responsibility. We have open dialogue. We don't, subjugate our citizens. These are the ideas that gave birth to the American Revolution and to the Constitution. We trace our lineage back to the Magna Carta and so many other things. The point is, and Matt's, I think, point is well made. Somebody need to say it, so I'm not going to quibble over his choice of words here, because it needs to be said, America is a Christian nation, and we will remain that way. And one of Charlie's last and most passionate issues that he presented to the world was that we must not allow Islam to invade America. We must not allow Islam to invade the Christian West. And there you go. There's him saying it in tweet form.
And we're promised to Abraham, the father of the Jewish people, I will bless those who bless you. The Christian Bible tells us that we have been grafted into God's family tree, the rich olive tree of Israel, the very foundations of the Christian faith, the Bible, and Jesus, whom Christians call the Messiah.
Because the FBI thing this morning. So
you've got all your stories. They're blurring together.
So Jack, tell us about this Pentagon thing. The way I understand it is that the Pentagon, and this is of course, our good friend Pete Hegseth, who Charlie fought real hard to get confirmed, and they basically put out new press guidelines saying that you cannot ask members, staff, Pentagon officials to go off the record, and essentially everybody in the press corps that covers the Pentagon walked out, except for groups like TPUSA, the National Pulse. Tell us about this story give us your media perspective on this.
Yeah, so when I was reached out to about the new Pentagon press corps by the Department of War and their press office, I jumped at the chance. I mean, why wouldn't I want Human Events and our entire team from there and the Post Millennial to get in on the stories, to embed with as new media for any of these things, like I just did with the Secretary of War as well as the President down to the Navy 250th, and I had the opportunity to go to the Marine Corps 250th. It just didn't work out time-wise with the Vice President Vance, and so you want to be able to do that coverage. Now, the media, of course, they prior to this administration, they were given free reign of the Pentagon. They were allowed to walk around the halls. They were allowed, access like just a complete inordinate. Honestly, I can understand from the Pentagon's perspective, perhaps inappropriate level of access, because what have they been dealing with? Leaks. They've been dealing with very bad political leaks, the likes of which have turned into impeachments, like the one Eric Charamella that started with a guy on the National Security Council leaking to the press, specifically David Ignatius and the Washington Post, and you saw the General Flynn case started with leaks. So they've been dealing with all of these leaks over the years. So what they're trying to do is fight those leaks. Look, the press is the press. The press has the First Amendment, and we at Human Events and the Post Millennial are certainly going to exercise our First Amendment rights. No one ever tells us what to write. No one ever tells me what to say, and I would honestly bristle if anyone did, and they know that's not how this game works. But at the same time, we are going to tell what we hear and what we find out publicly and honestly, and we are not going to put any spin on it. And people can go and look at my record all the way through the strikes in Iran, or the Israel conflict with Hamas and Gaza, and we covered it here with Charlie every single day when all of that was going on. We in fact did a massive live stream about it, telling everybody what was going to happen and what our analysis was. So we are going to stick to that. And if the mainstream media is upset that the Pentagon is actually taking these leaks seriously, then I think they kind of seem to have forgotten what their actual role is.
Yeah, I mean, I have worked in press and media from a PR perspective. I did all of Charlie's crisis PR and booked him on all the media hits.
Oh, crazy. Charlie never had anything.
And handled profiles, etc. And I will tell you that, there are good, kind people in the press corps that are at the national level, the legacy media level. And there are a pit of vipers that will make up the remainder. And you have to understand this is the most entitled, pretentious, I would say, career that one might choose, or just the disposition of those people that tend to occupy that career in that profession. And yeah, to your point, it doesn't seem like, listen, you can work outside of the halls of the Pentagon and still ask for something on background or off the record. So they're just saying, like, while you're in this building, you cannot do that, and that's the new rule. I don't see what the big deal is. Post-millennial human events, the National Pulse, Gateway Pundit. It's going to be a whole new day at the Pentagon, and if the press is just going to opt out, don't be surprised when you don't get the stories. More with Jack Posobiec.
Replace the press pool.
Exactly. We are the media now. This corresponds with a really creepy story that we covered at TPUSA Frontlines. About this, basically an Antifa hit list. I want to know what the heck is going on with Democrats keeping lists all of a sudden. And so,
well, it's amazing, right?
Yeah,
so there's no daylight whatsoever between what you see at the Antifa level and what you see at the Democrat level in the House. And this is something where, Harry Sisson asked me the other day, he said, are there any high-ranking Democrats who call Republicans fascists and Hillary? I said, Kamala Harris did when you were campaigning for her. They all do. Joe Biden, you go down the list, right? So what Katie Davis Court and TPUSA Frontlines were able to uncover on the ground, they've gone through Seattle, they've gone through Portland, they've been infiltrating Oakland, California, infiltrating these Antifa cells, and they found hit lists of prominent influencers, reporters, media figures, conservatives, that if you see these people, that you are essentially to fight them, to attack them, and I'm just going to say it, to kill them. Right? These are kill orders that got put out certainly after the murder of Charlie Kirk, and certainly after that White House roundtable that we held talking about Antifa, and that's what they're doing now. And so you can actually see there are certain members of the Turning Point Frontlines team, like Jonathan Cho and Dr. Karlin Borsenko, who joined them as well, that were on the list even as they themselves were there taking the photos and were infiltrated. So they're sitting there taking a picture of their own mugshots, essentially, from this terrorist group. And again, it really just goes to show you that whenever you hear the media, whenever you hear the Democrats say that they don't exist, that Antifa doesn't exist, they have hit lists, they have cells, they have book fairs, they have communes, they have command centers in Seattle that you can go into and infiltrate like Turning Point Frontlines did. And God bless them for going in there, putting themselves in harm's way like this. They literally go to the front lines, and that's why they're called that. Those are the guys who should be called the top influencers. Those are the guys who are the most important, the ones that are actually putting themselves in harm's way. And so you look at all this, and then you combine that with the fact that now we have House members that want to target ICE officers, the same ones who want to bring up January 6th every time they get a chance. They bring up Jan 6, Jan 6, Jan 6, and now you are the ones that are physically doxing, harassing, and targeting federal agents on the street, who, by the way, are enforcing the laws that were passed by Congress. That's what federal agents do.
Well, yeah,
they're
Jack,
trying to get people killed.
Yeah, let me play some of these clips. This is Robert Garcia. He's a top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, and he's announcing this plan, Cut 243.
I shared this with the mayor. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, the Oversight Committee will be launching on their website a master ICE tracker, where we're going to be essentially tracking every single instance that we can verify that the community will be able to send us information on.
Yeah, and you saw Karen Bass there, and then we have another disgraced big city mayor. This is Lori Lightfoot just getting in on the action, 290.
We start the process of unmasking the agents. Even though they're wearing masks, every single one of them has a towel.
You say unmasking, they're going to say you're going to dox them, and that's why threats against them are up.
They are on public property, out in the open. We have an absolute right under our Constitution to be able to document what's happening. Every single one of those agents, height, weight, hair color, they wear their vests in a particular way. They're wearing insignias, even the masks that they wear, the shoes that they wear, the cars that they're driving. We have a right to compile that information.
So she's claiming she has a constitutional right to essentially dox, track, and endanger ICE agents that are enforcing federal immigration law. And by the way, that we're just this policy of mass deportations that was just voted on by the American people after Joe Biden let in 10 million plus illegals stream into this country. And so now they're doing it. So you're seeing this at the federal level. You're seeing this at the local level. There's Letitia James who's getting in on the action here. Jack, 288. Let's play that cut.
A new portal where residents can send photos and videos of ICE operations. James says the portal is meant to review and investigate legal violations by agents, and her statement referenced Tuesday's immigration raid in Chinatown in New York City. Meantime, House Democrats say they will launch their own similar ICE tracker. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi is criticizing that effort.
So Jack, we've got two different efforts here to track ICE agents, and Stephen Miller is livid. He's saying how much more blood has to be spilled by Democrats before this madness stops. And that's exactly where my head goes. We see
right. By the way, just on, you hear this violent rhetoric and you hear this violent, and again, these are taking steps. So when you talk about it's like when you talk to lawyers about how do you constitute a conspiracy where there's a conspiracy to commit violence? Well, taking steps in furtherance of a conspiracy is how you move from just talking about something like, oh, I hate that guy so much, I can murder him, all right, that's free speech. But when you take steps in furtherance of the conspiracy, that's when it crosses into illegal action. And so what they're saying out there, the low level are saying, we are going to kill the ICE agents. We're going to shoot at them. They have shot at them. This guy down in Dallas had the anti-ICE written on the bullet casings. And now what do we see? They're giving lists. They're trying to put out addresses. They want another killer. They're taking steps in furtherance of the conspiracy.
This protest as well that were holding up a picture of a guillotine with a single MAGA hat at the bottom, kind of signaled that, or looked like they were signaling to behead MAGA people. That was interesting. He also had a big sign reading, "All Nazis go to hell," with a MAGA hat and the word ICE on the banner. And then another sign that said, the MAGA hat is the modern day KKK hat or Nazi hat. So a lot of the typical things that we were seeing, and it's really interesting, Andrew, because I feel like you had two subsets of people. You had the protesters who had no idea why they were there, had no idea what the event was even about, couldn't even explain the concept of no kings and how it relates to President Trump. And then you had the radical left that were there to essentially state that the other half of America, the 77 million people who voted for President Trump, deserve the death penalty, essentially, because they're Nazis and they're fascists. So those were the two groups in attendance this last Saturday.
I actually find it bizarre that in 2025, we are still having the debate with Democrats that Antifa is a real thing, that they are a militant force of radical leftists that take to the streets to harass federal law enforcement, to harass journalists like you. I mean, Sab, you have had run-ins with Antifa. Is Antifa real?
Yes, Andrew, Antifa is 1,000% real. I have been attacked by them personally. All of my personal friends have been attacked by them. I mean, I was sitting at the Antifa roundtable just a couple weeks ago on behalf of Turning Point USA, and I got to speak with the president about what we've been seeing on the ground for years at this point, because Antifa has been terrorizing law-abiding American citizens, journalists, and quite frankly, it's been so difficult. And there was a period of time in which I was even scared to go and report on the streets of Portland because I knew that there was no police presence there, and Antifa really did run the streets. So if I got hurt, RIP to me, essentially. And this was the mindset of a lot of journalists who have been covering Antifa. And it's funny, Andrew, because the left wing has really been trying to slander everybody at that roundtable and say that we are not real journalists, because I guess real journalism in 2025 is not going to the No Kings protests and highlighting all of the protesters who are calling for violence against half the nation. I guess being a fake journalist is going and covering Antifa and putting your life on the line, trying to highlight the very well organized organization that this is and how violent they've been toward, again, law-abiding American citizens.
Well said, Saf. It feels like maybe you got accosted by one of these people that I'm talking about here. Let's go ahead and play cut 60.
I'm here at the No Kings protest. I've been following this protest for about 3 hours now. I am wearing my official New York City press badge, and it says Turning Point USA on it. This is a message for all of the people who say that journalists like myself and the journalists who were at the Antifa roundtable are agitators. I'm standing here doing nothing, and I have had people come up to me, read my press badge, and then try to make a point of telling me that Charlie was a racist anti-Semite and that I am a problem, essentially. All I'm doing is standing here and taking footage.
58 is actually part of that interaction that you were just reacting to. Let's go ahead and play cut 58.
So you found out that I work for Turning Point, and you said you can't stand here and talk with me because why?
Because Charlie Kirk was a racist, bigot, scum. His rhetoric has ruined thousands of lives.
Can I ask what rhetoric is at the forefront for you that was the most hateful?
I hate his racism. He was an anti-Semite.
So regarding the racism, I myself am a Hispanic Asian.
Another
woman.
Q-tip.
Hired me on to represent this organization.
God bless. Everybody needs a token.
Everybody needs it. Okay, Sav, I'll let you take that. I mean, this guy's a real peach, real winner. This one.
Yeah,
Another
Andrew, when I was here this last Saturday, I was simply standing there, and these men struck up a conversation with me because they read Turning Point USA on my badge. And again, this man got so agitated that he felt the need to say that Charlie was a racist, anti-Semite, that he was all of these horrific things. And again, I'm trying to give an example of how Charlie was not any of these things. And then this man decides to respond with racism, which is what he's accusing Charlie of. And then, the conversation goes on, and he's basically talking about how the right wing is fascist. Meanwhile, he's standing in front of a giant sign, that is labeling all of the left wing's opposition as fascist. And I'm like, no, you guys are the ones that are acting in a fascistic way, silencing people, attacking people, and people on the right wing are really suffering from it and being killed because of it. Do you not see a problem with that? And of course they don't. It's really interesting because I do notice that a very angry contingent of, like I said, this older class. And Andrew, it's funny, I've been getting the same exact comments where it's like, don't be ageist, don't be mean to the boomers. Guess what? There's bad millennials, there's bad Gen Zers too that are equally as radicalized as the boomers. So we need to call all of them out. And I don't understand why they are so aggressive. Again, Andrew, this is a 60-year-old man who is hurling what would be considered by the left wing racist insults at me because I work for an organization that's merely on the ground trying to show people what's going on.
They are trying to normalize Antifa. That's what all those signs were. That's what George Conway was doing. It's really, really disgusting because Antifa has completely dismissed the liberal values of open debate and open dialogue that Charlie promoted.
Xi Jinping may no longer be in charge of the CCP. A series of top-level purges within the Chinese military has removed loyalists to Xi Jinping in what looks like a power grab against the communist leader. Let me explain. Epic Times says this. It says, in a dramatic move on October 17th, the Chinese Communist Party expelled 9 high-ranking military leaders and handed them over for investigations and accusations related to corruption and abuse of power, including a top general considered to be a close ally of party chief Xi Jinping. Why does this matter? Basically, the Chinese military is controlled by a handful of figures. These figures have various allegiances. Not all of them are loyal to Xi Jinping. Some are part of other factions. And the ones closest to Xi Jinping, just turns out, well, they're the ones being purged. And because the ones closest to Xi Jinping are being purged, a lot of people are saying, including us here, Xi Jinping may be getting removed from a position of influence over the military. Chinese politics is a little more complicated. Let me explain. Epic Times says this. Ha Wei-dong, a member of the Politburo, the CCP's second highest decision-making body, and a vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, which exercises the CCP's control over the armed forces, was stripped of his party membership, no longer a member of the CCP, and taken down from the People's Liberation Army, according to a spokesperson for China's defense ministry, meaning